Hello, Catamount. My name is Alexander Hoffman, and this is Chats with Cats presented by WeTV. In this series, we've been interviewing some of our amazing student athletes here at Western Carolina University. We are proud to continue our coaching interviews today, though. Today's guest is women's basketball head coach Jonathan Tsipis, or Coach Sip. How are you today, Coach?
Great. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Go ahead and please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and your place here at Western.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Tsipis. I have the privilege of being the head women's basketball coach here at Western Carolina. I've been in the game a long time. I've been in college basketball for 29 years. 22 of those I've been on the women's side. So this is my third opportunity as a head coach, and this is my 10th season. So just really excited, to hopefully bring my knowledge and a lot of my energy and enthusiasm here to Cullowhee and help grow these student athletes.
Yeah, already we've definitely seen a lot of that energy in our season. And as we continue to progress through your first WCU season, what kind of basketball program are you looking to build here at Western?
Well, we'd like to be something that is, a model of the athletic department, that our student athletes, when they come here, when we're in the recruiting process, we're talking about, a very unmatched student athlete experience here. And, with our campus, and I think the uniqueness of our campus and an opportunity to build a championship level program like it was during the 2000s. We also want to do that with young women who strive to be great academically, have goals of what they want to be once they leave Cullowhee. But I think, my biggest goal is that growth is how we're able to take young women and they can improve on the floor, in the classroom, socially. And so by the time they graduate, they've got a great set of life skills that they can go on into the real world.
Yeah, and I think we've already started to see a lot of that growth in our program. For those that don't know, you have, as of today, January 28th, 11 wins as head coach at Western so far, which is the most the team has had since our 2014 and 15 season, and we still have more games to go. So what would you say has contributed to that success?
Well, I'd say the young women, we had 8 people that returned, and then we signed 2 freshmen in the late signing period, as well as added 2 from the transfer portal. And I think their buy-in and their commitment, we were fortunate enough to have them here during the summer. And as much as you do basketball activities, you have way more time to just get to know each other, get to have them be able to bond, buy in what we're trying to do. I'm very lucky to have a great staff, a really young staff who have all just recently finished playing within the last, a couple of them within the last 2 years. And I think taking that group together and just talking about putting the past in the past and what that experience, especially, for our 4 student athletes who will be finishing their eligibility this spring, is being able to give them what's that last chapter they're going to write. And, the 11 wins are great, to have success in the non-conference and be able to go and win 5 road games. We're trying to move things forward with our own set of goals and not too worried about when the last thing something happened, but making sure winning is hard. And winning is, and I think you get to understand that the longer you're in this. And, I just credit our players. I think you look at the hard work they put in when nobody's watching. You look at how they can respond after something doesn't go the right way, whether it's a loss or something happens. And that's our job, I think, as the coaches, to help them, to guide them, to push them, but also to make sure that we're celebrating those accomplishments.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've seen in every single one of our games. Even after we have a loss, our players bounce back and still have the energy game after game after game. And so I think that's something that's definitely really helpful, both from them and also from our coaching staff like you. So expanding on that last question as well, how would you say that success helps us continue taking steps to bring our women's basketball program more into the SoCon spotlight?
Well, I mean, the Southern Conference is such a good league, and this year especially, it's a very upper-class dominated league this year. And so, I think you get, no matter what records are in the non-conference, you have some teams that, have had, strong non-conference records, but then you have some teams that have maybe had some injuries or maybe had to play more games on the road. And so it's an amazing fight every time you go out to play a Southern Conference game. And, we want to understand that Western Carolina is in a different space and a different, perception of who we are. And, I think you learn from each game, win or loss, of, how important it is to protect your home court, how important it is to get off to the right start when you're on the road. And, I think we have to be able to use the confidence and the experience we gain from the non-conference, but we've also got to be able to take the experience of not finishing games the way we'd like when we're right there and put ourselves in a position to win the game. So it's, I actually said to the team yesterday, every season is a lifetime. And again, like during any type of lifetime, there's going to be highs and lows. And I always feel like how do you respond from each really plays into what you're able to do in the future.
Yeah, I think those responses are really important. And kind of along that as well, what would you say is the foundation of your coaching style?
Yeah, I'd say the foundation is player development. I'm really big on, in the recruiting process, we talk about it, how we gauge our practices, how we get players in, when we're not practicing for extra work. I just think there's no substitute for that. But then chemistry, I think you have to put that together that, you can take, and, the saying I love is we want to be more than the sum of our parts. And, I think we've had to do that in different ways, whether it be injuries we've had during the year. And obviously all teams go through that, but, how we started the year and playing, how, some of the players at one point we played 2 games with only 8 players dressed, which is going to happen in real life. That's, again, like so much I want to be able to, have our young women prepared for that step, whether it's a job, whether it's, raising a family, whether it's their social life, is they're going to run into obstacles, and how do you fight those? And so much of that is preparation, and I think you see, it hopefully, reflects over into the academic side when they don't do well on a test or a paper and how they respond, but also the confidence they have when they prepare themselves well and they do well on a test or a project, is really important that those are always crossing over. I think the other thing is we try to make sure our players understand when it's basketball. When they're outside, it's not basketball, and that they don't try to bleed the things in on each other, because I think all of a sudden if you're not doing well in academics, that can take away from your basketball performance and vice versa. So we have a saying called 22-2 that, 2 hours of the day we are, and sometimes it might be 2.5, but are completely immersed with basketball. But then when it's here, if it's a bad practice or a bad game, you got to be able to let it go so you can move on to the next thing in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And this show is kind of built upon the principle of all of our student athletes being a lot more than just athletes. They are students. It's in the name of student athletes. And that's something that doesn't necessarily get focused on a lot by a lot of people on the outside. So I did also want to ask how you and your coaching team assist the team in being successful off the court as well.
Well, I think we try to promote, the successes our student athletes have, and we're very open talking about that to the team. We want to know that. Our assistant coaches actually break up the team as well and have individual academic meetings that then they report back to me so that I can make sure, it's not just, hey, we don't want to just approach people when they're struggling with things. We want to be able to tell them when, they've done great work on something or, and I think we're very fortunate because I think with the assistance that we have from our academic services people, we have former student athletes that are in charge of that program on campus with Haley, who does our day-to-day, as well as Ashley Simmons, who's a former women's basketball player and is our, senior associate athletic director in charge of student success. So it's really important, I think, that the players see that we have people in place that have been in their shoes. And I think that helps them feel more comfortable when they go through the hard times. And again, I don't care if you're a 4.0 student, or we're trying to, I do care if you're a 4.0 student, but if you're a 4.0 student or somebody, maybe your potential is more at the 3.0, we want you to reach that. In the same way we want you to reach that in basketball. From the academic side, it's something we sit down with the parents and talk about. We will take basketball away if academics aren't where they need to be, because again, it's another life goal and life skill I think they need to have. So we're really fortunate. We have really smart kids that work really hard, and our team GPA went up by almost 0.5 point from the spring to what it was this fall, and we have student athletes all across different majors too. So that's really fun to hear their excitement about what they're studying. And some are in grad school. Some obviously are freshmen, kind of don't really know kind of what they want to major in, and then everywhere in between. So exciting to see that future doctors, future coaches, future teachers, be able to have great energy and excitement about what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And Another theme that we kind of touch on a lot in the show is the family feel within a lot of our athletics. So I did kind of also want to ask how you plan to contribute to that as head coach here.
Yeah, I think, I think you in the recruiting cycle, I think everybody in college basketball talks about family. And I think for me, it's always been that parallel of my own family with our own team. And, whether it's, how the staff is interacting, I'm in a unique situation. I have a daughter who's a junior at Chapel Hill. My wife and son are actually still back in Wisconsin. It's his senior year in high school. And we made the decision as a family to have him finish his senior year and not have to uproot him for one last year. So, the basketball family is my day-to-day family right now as far as being in, physical existence. But, for me, it's a matter of, having the team over at our house, asking them about their family, understanding, that after games that they can get out there and spend time with their family. But, I think the biggest thing to me and the best lesson I was ever taught is, I'm trying to make decisions a lot of times for our young women and I think about like, what would I want somebody to do for my own daughter? And having somebody who's in college right now, it's kind of, a few years ago, it was when my daughter was, going kind of in that same recruiting cycle of, not that she was recruited to play basketball at this level, but she was going through college decisions and teenage things. And that really helped me be able to relate better, I think, during the recruiting cycle. And now I kind of understand what a junior in college is going through from talking to her, but then also talking to our players. And I think, in that sense, in some ways, obviously I'm the head coach. In some ways I'm a father figure. And I really appreciate that. I don't think they appreciate the dad jokes sometimes, but we try to tie that in. They know all about my own family. I think they are more excited to see my wife when she comes and our dog. But just again, like you want to make sure that how are they doing with their own family too, and to be able to help them and be a sounding board.
Yeah, I do definitely think the family connections outside of just the team help with building it within the team as well, and having that foundation. How much would you say support from our returning players? Like you mentioned, 8 of them this season, like Jada Burton, Zenoria Cruz, Chelsea Wooten, of course, 2-time Chats with Cats guest, Nicole Azar. Any of those players, that support has contributed to our success.
No question. And 8 young women decided that this is what they wanted to do in the spring. We spent a lot of time in one-on-one meetings last spring and in the early summer of, what do you see your experience being? And it wasn't going to be for everyone. I think knowing this and having done this 2 other times, you've gained knowledge on what's worked and maybe what's even more important, what hasn't worked. And, I think with that group, they could really help our 4 new ones assimilate to campus better, and kind of the day-to-day life here at Western. But their buy-in and being open, especially 4 of them with only 1 year left, 3 of them being returners. It's that understanding that like change was going to happen, and change can be frightening sometimes. And, understanding, change is one thing as it's going through the summer and the fall, when playing time's not on the line. And then there's even more change when maybe it's a different role, like somebody like Zenoria Cruz was playing on the perimeter last year. We specifically play her inside this year. So, they all have their own unique kind of journey. And I think trying to get to understand that, where they're at academically, where they're at socially, but they've been tremendous. We don't have the success we've had so far this season with that buy-in for the returners, which really I think help make those newcomers feel welcome and be able to get on board and not have to. Again, we obviously you have to be intentional about communication, about growth. Because if you're not, then you can let things go by the wayside. But, I think our newcomers were able to with their personalities as well. But so much of that was the welcoming aspect of our returners.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times now with basketball and any of college athletics, you see a lot of like changes whenever there's a coaching change. With the transfer portal, everybody will just enter immediately. But it was really good to see a lot of our players stick around. And so I think that's been something really nice. My last main question before I move into a couple other little things is about mental health, which is an incredibly important aspect for athletics, but especially student athletics because of the intensive schedule that they often face. what do you and your coaching staff do to support the team, and how important of a part would you say mental health plays in these students' lives?
Oh, there's no question, and I think there's so many things that feed into that. I think social media is a big aspect of that, and so, all of a sudden somebody being judged on how many likes they get, how well they're playing, how well they're not playing. I think having open space is the first thing, and I think as coaches we have to be really good listeners, and at times we're coaching, but at times we need to shut it off and just listen. And I think making sure that I had a coaching staff that had very different personalities, so that our players have, they might be coached by one coach who's their position coach, but they might have a relationship that maybe they just gel better with another coach. And I think that's really important when you build a staff. Again, I mentioned earlier about having the young staff who's kind of just gone through some of the things that I think our players were, which obviously mental health is a huge component of that. I think it's really important. We have a former women's basketball player who's in the CAPS program here on campus. So I think there's definitely the opportunity. Some of the players played with her, so there's already an immediate connection. But again, having somebody who's maybe not making coaching decisions, but understands the day-to-day student-athlete women's basketball routine, to have somebody like that to go talk to. And again, I think making sure they understand, I think this, take the stigma out, to just have somebody to talk to get strategies. We're not experts in that area, but I think it's one of those things that we're constantly learning as basketball coaches. I always say, for me, I have a pharmacy degree. I really feel like after 29 years, I should have had a psychology degree just to help our student athletes. And I think when you do that, you have to make it a priority. You have to understand, that if people don't have the right strategies, or they don't have somebody to talk to, or maybe even I think, I'm very big, if you find somebody to talk to and you're not matching with them, you got to try to find somebody else. And I think you as a staff, you have to be vulnerable in your own experiences with mental health as well. And I think that helps a team be able to open up a little bit more with their own struggles.
Yeah, and I also think that the small team size definitely helps with that as well, being able to connect with each other and that family feel all just meshed together into being able to play a part in that mental health. So very helpful, especially with all the resources at Western.
Absolutely.
For that. So moving into our lightning round, just 3 short little questions with some short little answers. So what is your favorite game so far you've coached this season?
I would say, it's either my first game, or I would say probably the Campbell game. It was, the first time we were playing somebody that they had played last year, and were able to switch the score, the end result. And it was an exciting game. We were up 7 at halftime, then we were down 8. We were able to make a couple, Grace Pack was able to make a couple key free throws to go up 1, and then we got a defensive stop. And just the excitement, to see our players in a game maybe in the past that hadn't become successful. But we've had the opportunity. We won a really close game at Radford that we were down most of the game. So, but I think that Campbell game is one. It was on my birthday as well, so it's always nice to win on your birthday. Just to see the joy that our players had, and I think the belief. I think the opener was great. I think the expectations in that game, when it's a non-Division I game, are a little bit different. But to beat a really well coached and a consistently good Campbell team really kind of, I think, help set us up as we move forward.
Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite sport to watch and your favorite team outside of Western?
I'd say my favorite, I love college basketball, and big shocker on that one. But I would say, right now for another year, it's my son's teams at Middleton High School, as he plays basketball and golf. But, I'm a North Carolina fan. So as a Chapel Hill graduate, so we've got round 1 of Duke Chapel Hill this Saturday, which my daughter's coming to see our games this weekend. And her only request is that we make sure and that she can watch the Duke Carolina game on Saturday night. So I'm a Cleveland fan. I grew up in Cleveland. It's hard. The Cavs are playing great. The Guardians had a great year and went to the playoffs. The Browns are the Browns. So, but yeah, I just love the atmosphere of college athletics. I think obviously I've been in it a long time, and enjoyed seeing, I've seen every sporting event so far that we've had here at Western. I look forward to, I really enjoyed baseball season last year and got to see a couple softball games. And, the spring is just obviously like, fall football that just, the atmosphere, and then the beauty of the nature and everything. But there's something about just cheering for the purple.
Yeah, of course. And what is your favorite post-game meal?
Yeah, I don't. That's a hard one, just because I think I'm a coach that doesn't sit down during the games. I'm not usually somebody who can eat a bunch. I would say my favorite post-game meal is whatever we have after we win. It's just it's more important the players get what they need to refuel and everything like that. But usually I just have a Diet Mountain Dew and then whatever we have. But I'm not picky on that. But again, just no matter what you have seems to taste a little bit better after a win.
Yeah, definitely. And we are going to move into our last question, kind of to tie everything together. What would you like to say to the Catamounts watching this to amp them up for the rest of our women's basketball season here at Western?
Yeah, I think, to come support your classmates and your fellow students that are women's basketball players, especially, for young women who are, in their last year of eligibility, and we get down the stretch here and they've only got, 4 more home games. It's just to come let out your aggression at our games, cheer loud, tell the officials that you might not agree with their calls. But it's a special team, they're making a change in a program to move us forward. You could say you're part of that when you come watch them as we continue to try to strive for success. And I think anybody who's come to our games, it's a fun group. It's a group that has a lot of, energy and enthusiasm, the bench, the staff. We're not, business-like on the sidelines. We're enjoying it just the same way our players are, because we understand how much hard work they put in. And I'm sure Catamounts, so you're putting hard work in, whether, you're in sports or you're not in sports. There's things you're doing on this campus we'd love to support as well. We're not just asking you to come to our games, because we want that campus experience for everybody involved in our program.
Yeah, thank you. And again, stay loud at the basketball games. That is very important. But we are going to kind of close out. Thank you for coming on the show today, Coach Tsip.
Appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll see you next time, and go Cats.